Database security is a huge and important topic. In this short video, I'll give you a flavour of how CrateDB addresses security. We'll look at controlling access to CrateDB and encryption of data in transit and at rest, as well as other authentication, authorisation, and audit trail topics. Let's begin by understanding a little bit about role-based access control. We don't always want everyone to have the same level of access to the data stored in a database. A common way of addressing this is via role-based access control, or RBAC. This is fully supported in CrateDB. Here, I'm creating a role that we'll call Taxi Reader. Let's first deny that role access to all tables in the default doc schema. Then grant it query access to the two taxi tables named taxis and taxi rides. Now we have a role, we can assign it to one or more users. Let's create a user named Taxi User and give it a password. By default, this user has no privileges. Giving the Taxi Reader role to our new user grants it the privileges associated with that role. So what can Taxi User access? Let's find out. I'm now connected to CrateDB as the Taxi User. First, let's try a query against the taxis table. As you'd expect, this user is allowed to execute this query. What about a query that uses the 311 call data? This results in an error as the taxi user doesn't have the correct privileges to access that table. Remember that we get the taxi user query rights over the taxi table.